You're not a guest, Dan. Okay, approval of agenda. Everybody got anything they want to add or omit? Okay. Everybody look at the minutes from the previous meeting. We really don't need a vote because we don't vote on agenda or minutes, but everybody look at them. Is there anything missing or that they would like to add? They look like they're pretty thorough. Anita does a great job putting them together. Thank you.
Yep.
So with that, we'll move on to EGLE updates. Sarah?
Hi, good afternoon. I don't have a lot to include in the updates because we have a lot in the new business area. So a lot of those topics will be hit on there. And I just wanted to let everybody know that our cycle for registration will be closing and late notices will be going out after July 1st. So if people haven't paid their registration dues by then, they'll be receiving late notices. Other than that, we are looking at some well logic improvements to help with some of the items that we have some difficulties with. So stay tuned on that. And I think then I will leave the rest up to what's going to be discussed later on. Unless you have any questions.
Nope, I think we're good. Unless anybody else has anything. Okay. Unfinished business, Michigan Association of Local Health Department Administrative. We have been in contact with Matt, MGWA, Mike, myself, and Matt Bolang and Sarah Simmons with health administrators, Maliha, and we have come up with a format for basically dispute resolutions if Maliha has a problem with a well driller that's really not related to enforcement action, and or more probably often than not when a well driller is having a problem with a health department, either with misinterpretation or whatever. We've got a nice little flow chart and a path forward so that we're not calling our EGLE partners with every little problem that arises, which I believe is the way to handle it. Handle it locally first, and then if it can't be resolved locally, then we bring in EGLE because their time is precious and they have a lot on their plate, and we understand that. So that moved along very, very well. And actually, on a recent situation, which we don't need to go into, actually, in my opinion, worked. So we appreciate that with our partners and hope to resolve any problems in that path forward. So with that, we got new business. If anybody's got any questions on that, I'll take them. But
buddy, this is Dave. Matt Bowling sent me an email in regards to, I guess, the flow chart thing. And I'll just, if it's okay with you, he just, since his name was on there, he just wanted me to, I guess, maybe read what he, his thoughts on it, if that's okay.
Yep, go ahead. Yep, nope, that's fine.
He just said he was unable to attend the meeting this week and saw that his name was on the agenda. He goes, this is intended to provide internal guidance to MGWA members as they encounter issues with the local health departments. Sarah Simmons and I met with Buddy and Mike several times as a result of the letter that was sent to local health departments statewide over some repeated concerns and frustrations from MGWA members and their interactions with local health departments. Our hope is that this guidance document will allow for a process to be established within MGWA in an effort to avoid such a large-scale response in the future. I want to make it clear that there are no changes in processes necessary at EGLE or local health departments, as this is just a navigational tool for MGWA. It is more of an awareness should EGLE or local health departments get contacted by MGWA. And that's it. He had also attached the flow chart, but I don't know if that's something you wanted to share or not.
It doesn't matter if you want to share it with everybody, that's fine.
I looked at it. I don't, I mean, it basically just says, you know, like if health departments or MG or a member has an issue, just, you know, handle it between the two. And if it can't be handled, then take it to EGLE. I didn't really see anything earth shattering.
I agree. So it's a path forward, and I think cohesive agreement on how things are handled helps it a lot better. So rather than everybody taking individual rifle shots, you know, at the situation wherever it is, it's more cohesive. This is how we move forward with any dispute. So, okay, good. We're on new business. You want to take that, Dave or Sarah?
It's up to you, Sarah. If you want to say something, or I can kind of start and you can jump in if you feel like it.
Well, I would first like to take back what I said as far as an update, because I see that Brian Thurston has joined us. So I would like to introduce EGLE's new Assistant Division Director, Brian Thurston, who is now our Assistant Division Director on the environmental health side in drinking water and environmental health. And I didn't see you on there earlier, Brian, so I'm going to circle back to my EGLE updates and introduce our newest Assistant Division Director.
Well, thank you, Sarah. So my name is Brian Thurston, and as Sarah said, I'm the Assistant Division Director that's going to be looking at our environmental health programs. So I also will be working, I've had my vast experience in community water supply and in the source water protection and all of those things. I was the field operations section manager with EGLE previously over all of the community water supply programs. But I have 28 years in with, actually 29 years in now with EGLE. And all of its predecessors from the health department. So I've been very involved in these and involved with many of the team here in the environmental health programs for many years as we work through as different areas in the different parts of the department, and I did my job. So I have a vast experience there, not so much in touch with all the things in there, but we'll be in the side. And so working with Sarah and Jeremy and the rest of the team here in Dana, and trying to get all of those items together to make sure that we're moving forward, a path forward.
It's on behalf of MGWA, it's our pleasure to meet you. Thanks.
Yep.
Is he still
So
talking?
I'm just sort of in the eavesdropping mode at this point, learning along on the side, interested in the one about the rule changes that are needed for the cement and stuff. So just so I can make sure we get the right updates out and stuff. So just going to kind of be listening along today. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, excellent. So yes, Dave, I'm going to turn it over to you. You are the expert and have done the research on the ASTM standards. So.
Okay. All right. Yeah. You say expert, I hope loosely there.
You have more expertise than me.
Okay. Well, as maybe I know, as Buddy knows, us at EGLE were made aware of a situation by NGWA and MGWA as well, that type 1 cement was actually no longer being produced, or wasn't becoming available in other states, such as in the Midwest, such as Wisconsin and Minnesota. And we became aware of that through them. Under Rule 140, it states that Portland cement must meet ASTM C150 standard, which is basically what we've considered over time here as, you know, the type 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 cements, also like the 1As and things along those lines. But the concrete industry over time has been wanting to reduce, you know, through EPA nudging as well, reduce their carbon footprint, and has been switching out to type 1L to replace 1. Type 1L actually is does not, it's not a cement that's basically made under that ASTM C150 standard. It's basically under the standard of ASTM C595. And that C595 standard isn't included in Rule 140. So basically, we were at a point, or looking at it from the perspective that, the cement that's most commonly used, type 1, which meets the C150 standard, is basically no longer being produced. And the supply is dwindling and is being replaced definitely in the bag form with this 1L. Now, other industries have accepted type 1L, such as roads. I did quite a bit of research, and obviously 1L, I couldn't really find much information as far as it being used as a grout for wells. But really the main difference between 1 and 1L really is the content for limestone. Instead of it being less than 5%, it's somewhere between 5 and 15 typically, and most of the time around 10%. So not much of a change there, really more of a, less clinker and more limestone. From everything I've read and looked at, density is about the same, mixed ratios are about the same, strength and other characteristics are the same. In looking at it, really the cement itself, doesn't really look like that much of a difference from those type of characteristics. I've been in contact with Minnesota and Wisconsin. They both basically have said at this point that they are looking at and have put out basically an enforcement exemption in regards to using 1L. At this point, I had put together a memo and had passed it along to management to take a look at and kind of review the issues. And also Minnesota and Wisconsin are also currently and actively working on rule changes to be able to include type 1L in their rules. Which was also our recommendation here in Michigan to work on that. And also the Michigan Concrete Association, as well as MGWA, has also stated that they would be in favor of that rule change. So at this point, I think I'll just kind of turn it over to Sarah as far as where I guess things are moving from here. I think she's got a little bit better picture than me on that.
Yeah, just as Dave indicated, we did make some recommendations in a memo and have provided supporting documentation to management. And I believe that Brian has that in his mailbox and is probably reviewing that. And that's why he's joining today. I don't know if, Brian, you have any questions about it, but...
So my only questions were on the side, and I think Dave just covered most of that stuff, was that, essentially in the idea of that if it were to, cause how it's going to react as a grout on the side, it sounds like it's not really any difference. The limestone is very crushed inside of it, so it's going to reseal itself. If it were to be disturbed and stuff like the neat cement does, it sounds like it'll have those same properties back into it. Is there anything that would be, from a sealant standpoint, Dave, that it didn't sound like you had anything, but you don't believe that there would be anything that would be necessarily different on that property being able to kind of like reseal itself if it was fractured, right?
Well, I mean, type 1 as well as 1L, once you add the water, you're essentially going through a chemical reaction. So, I as far as to me, it's really more of, the added limestone is really more of adding a little bit more of an inert ingredient, more so than anything else that based on the studies that I've seen and looking at the ASTM standards, I don't see any kind of major characteristic changes. Now, if a concrete gets fractured or there's some kind of issue related to it, you know, it's not like bentonite where it can kind of swell and kind of, you know, be more kind of run itself back into place. You know, once the concrete cracks in the ground, it's gonna stay that way, whether it's 1 or 1L.
Okay. All right. All right. I know that it hydrates and does most of that chemical reaction up front. I thought it had some ability to kind of so it was so fine that it could just kind of seal or sort of fill that crack back in, but maybe that's wrong information. So I'll go forward and move this stuff. We got the information. We've reached out to the rules people. They have the some documentation that we had to get back to them by I think very early next month, and so we'll work on getting those forms in to stay. I think the concept that Wisconsin and Illinois, I think you said had used was, you know, that we won't do enforcement on it. Maybe something we might want to do in between. The rules making process is a fairly long process. So even for something minor, EGLE rules have to go back through this other process that has a secondary group that takes another look at it outside of it, and it has to kind of get through there, and we got to explain a lot of things through that. So it's not a very easy process to make a quick modification. So I think that we might want to look at alternatives to the idea of how we're going to handle things in between as a little bit of a gap measurement.
Yep. Thank you, Brian. Are there any questions on this? No.
No, did you get our letter,
Yes.
Sarah, Dave, from Michigan Groundwater Association?
Yes, we did.
Okay, all right.
We appreciate that. We appreciate your support for this as well.
Well, we thought it was necessary. Number one, to say we're on board with you. Number two, 15 years down the road or 20, when somebody says, well, why'd they do that? They never asked us. You've got something where, hey, yeah, the industry agreed this needed to be done. So.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. If nobody's got any questions on that, as Michigan Groundwater Association, all I would ask EGLE to do is, as fast as the wheels of your movement can go, to give us some kind of peace of mind, would be appreciated to get this put behind all of us. So, and I know that's a big ask, but as quick as you can would be great. So, so you guys are on again on PFAS and action response, I guess.
Yes, Michigan's PFAS Action Response Team, MPART, had heard from other states that there's PFAS in foam that's used during drilling. And so I've been passing these over to Dave. So Dave, if you want to talk about the research you've been doing and the contacts you've made.
Yeah, I can do that. I guess my first question to the group here, I've, you know, obviously put feelers out to manufacturers as well as supply houses, a number of drillers, but just from this group's perspective, are you aware of anyone from a drinking water perspective that actually does use foam in Michigan at all?
Me.
Oh, really? Okay.
Most of the time where you use foam, Dave, is not necessarily on a 5-inch drinking water well or even a 6.9 drinking water well. It's when you get into the 8, 10, and 12-inch, either municipal irrigation or commercial wells to help bring the cuttings out of the hole with the air compressor. That's where drill foam does its job.
Yeah, I mean, when I went down to mud school at Halliburton, they talked about it. You know, that was really my first true experience seeing a lot of it. But when I talked to a lot of the suppliers and, you know, some of the bigger drillers, obviously didn't talk to you, but it didn't really sound like there was really anybody using foam. Are you aware of a lot of other drillers that are using it in the state?
I can probably tell you that every big driller that does and I say big driller, let me back up. Every bedrock well that's 8, 10, or 12, if there's a lot of area where it's not karst and you've got to bring out the material, most drillers have quick foam, which that's the Baroid name for it. Quick foam. I have 25 gallons of it here. I'll bet Ramers have some. I would bet that Cribley's have some. I would bet that Browns have some, although they're not drilling right now. I would bet that Peerless Midwest probably has a lot. I would think that probably, I don't know if Aaron Rice does too much bedrock work. Anybody that's drilling in bedrock is going to use foam for their air drilling. In other states, they let you use dishwashing soap, but we can't use that here. So,
Okay. Well, I know when I had talked to our oil, gas, and minerals folks, they had said, at least in the upper, you know, any kind of drilling water aquifer, whether it be glacial or bedrock, and most of their work is done, a lot of their work's done by DeBar. They basically said that they don't have really over the years any experience with anyone using drilling foam.
yeah. I'm going to say that probably out of all of my large capacity or high capacity wells that we drill, probably less than 20% I would use foam, but I have used it. I will say that I have used drill foam.
Okay. Basically, I like when I through Dan Mylan and a number of other folks, we were able to get a hold of Baroid as well as Wildben, and they're basically their drilling foam that's used from the perspective of drinking water wells that meets the NSF 60 standard. They had basically said that, and I received a letter already from Wildben, and Baroid said that they would give me one as well, basically stating the products that they have, including drilling foam, that they do not contain any PFAS chemicals, including quick foam.
Okay. So there's no PFAS chemicals, at least in Wildben, but Baroid hasn't responded, or
They've said verbally that that it does not contain it, but I have not gotten a letter from them.
okay. I think it's important that we get the letter just for protection.
Yes, particularly since the EPA issued the health advisory yesterday, taking us down to the parts per quadrillion as far as PFAS concentrations in water.
Dave, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
This is Dan. I will make a note to have Chad let him know that you're waiting for that letter. Norm responded right away from Baroid, so I'll give Chad a shout out and say that you are waiting for reference and your records, the letter from their I think it's chemical department or from their supplier. The only other uses in that item, and Milan and Valley do carry inventories, but you'll see in the UP might be Kopecky and Eric Kleinman also utilizing that. And I'm not sure about Louis, but those would be the 2 or 3 that I would think up in the Upper Peninsula applicable in rock drilling.
Yeah, Dan, we do use it from time to time, not that often though.
Oh,
Just whenever we need to
good
boost the air,
morning, Eric.
like Buddy was saying. Hi there.
Yeah. So.
Okay, so that concludes drill foam. I think that I appreciate EGLE looking into that. It's something I never thought of, to be honest with you. I'm more running around all my local fire departments asking them if they're using foam with PFAS in it, and they look at me kind of funny. So then I explain why, then they get it. So, we're on product approval update, Dave. Nobody's got anything else?
Yeah, you had asked me to, I guess, give a little update on a few of the items in regards to product approval. I just kind of picked 3 of the more recent ones to kind of cover, to kind of give a little bit of update in regards to those. Recently, Amtrol had gotten a hold of me. They're coming out with they're going to have a composite underground tank, essentially called the Titan. They just really recently submitted paperwork to me. Let's see if I can pull this up here. Quick second. Pretty interesting product because it's basically a fiberglass tank on the outside. But it actually has a fixed diaphragm design on the inside, so it's got a full, basically plastic sleeve on the inside. Looks like it's pretty nifty here in regards to that. Basically, the criteria for approval right now, we're kind of still waiting on our admin to approve the get it finalized and approve the most recent policy procedure. So this one's going to likely sneak under the wire as far as the old policy and procedure, which basically states buried tanks shall be constructed of metal at least 3/16 in thickness, or other material that is equal in strength, life expectancy, and resistance to corrosion. When I take a look at other tanks, such as like the Flex Light that's on the approved list right now, I don't see anything in relation to this tank that would lead me to believe that it wouldn't be approved under the old policy procedure, but I'm going to be taking a little bit closer look at that. So, does anybody have any questions related to that?
Related to product approval or related to tank?
Just the composite tank.
No.
Okay.
Second
Second item I was just going to cover. We had there was some talk I guess in the rumor mill that we had put out a memo back in January 2017 related to NSF 61 approved steel pipe that was greater than 8-inch. That 8-inch and larger was not NSF approved, but pipe that was 6-inch and less, we could get NSF approved steel pipe, both galvanized and black. We had heard, like I said, recently, or some rumors that 8-inch and above was available. I ended up talking to Al at Mylan Supply, and he put me in contact with Quality Pipe. And basically he pretty much told me the same thing as what the memo in January 17 had said, that really, like with Wheatland and any other place that he could find 6-inch and below, we could still find NSF approved pipe, even though it's fairly pricey, but 8-inch and above, even though it meets all the other qualifications such as F480 and such for steel pipe for well casing, they're still not NSF 61 approved pipe. So that memo from January 17, there really isn't anything in there that really has to change, or pretty much continues to stay in place. And then the only other update I just wanted to let everybody know is if anyone's looked at the approved equipment list, the A.O. Smith steel tanks are still on the list, and basically I'm still awaiting, like I said, the water well approved equipment approved list to be finalized by our admin and management, and then once that's done, we can move forward with the process of getting those tanks removed. And that's what I've got.
Okay, Dave, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Has Stefan from Wells submitted his flowing well seals for 4 and 5 and 6-inch for approval? The flowing wells pitless adapter?
No.
No? Okay.
No.
Thank you.
Not that I'm aware of. If they're, I mean, are you talking about something that he would have submitted to me in the last year or two?
Yeah.
No.
He come out with a pitless adapter that has a flowing well seal, similar to the Paulus type that has a vent in it, believe it or not. So I'm gonna make a phone call here, get him on the stick to get that approved. So.
Yeah, actually, to be honest with you, I think I was at where was I at? Some trade show, and I think I saw him, and
I saw him in before COVID.
Yeah. I think he had one there.
Yep. Okay. All right. I know it's available in other states and it's working well. So. All right. So that I appreciate. Contractor examination update, Kathy, if nobody else, anything else on approved products? If you do, speak up.
So we did have an exam on April 8th at Valley Farms in their classroom, which they very generously allow us to use. We had 9 guys. One was a retake of a couple sections. One was a pump installer who took the well driller section. And then we had 4 well drillers, 3 pump installers outside of that. We only had one young man fail one section of the pump installer's exam, and he's actually already done his retake and passed. So out of that group, we issued all the registrations for the whole group. We didn't really, using the classroom at Valley Farms is really a great atmosphere for these guys. I think they're a lot more comfortable with it than coming to our building downtown. So that's been, again, a really great partnership. So, yeah, we have the next exam scheduled in October. I'm starting to get applications in for that already. We'll review those and get them going. So I did want to touch real fast. Sarah talked about the registration renewals, and I wanted to give y'all some numbers for, we generate about 780 invoices for the registration renewal, pump installers and well drillers. We have over 100 well drillers that have not renewed yet, and about 16 pump installers. So what happens in this case, since we're past the April 30th date, as health departments notice that those guys are doing work And Anita notices they're trying to enter records in WellLogic. They cannot do that because they are in non-renewal. So every year we remind them, invoices go out February 1st. They need to be paid by April 30th. And some of these are guys that still do a lot of work and don't pay their renewal. So it's the same world it's always been. The health departments are just much more savvy now about looking at the list to see who's registered and who's not. And yeah, it's late invoices will go out on the 1st of July, and then these guys will start to pay. We'll find out if some of them drill wells during this time period. The health department will issue violation letters, and then we'll take enforcement if they still don't renew their registration. So it creates a lot of work for us. But yeah, that's where we are. So we still have 130 that haven't renewed. So, got any questions, buddy?
No, that's interesting to know. I need to call you on one myself, not for me, but for the company I bought. But other than that, that's
Ooh.
personal.
Kathleen, I'd like to
So-
get the names of the guys that took the test and passed.
Can we do
We're
that?
looking for more
Is
employees.
that it's public
I'm just kidding.
information?
It's on the website.
Their names are?
Correct.
Oh yeah, they show up on the list. So Spencer
do.
Battle, Anthony Sebastian, Charles Sebastian the Fourth, Marty Zuber, Alex Taylor, Sam Eder, Karsten McCarty, Jason Kropp Sr., and Scott Simmons.
Do you think all those guys like the UP?
It's interesting because they're all guys that probably are part of family businesses or have been in the industry for a number of years. Yeah.
Buddy, I have a question for Kathy. So that number of 130 of non-renewals is out of, what did you say, 7 something?
Out of 780, yep.
And then how did they, so if they, you said that, what do you, after April 30th, are they locked out of WellLogic? Is that, okay.
Well,
So,
no, it sends a message to Anita when they try to enter a well log in WellLogic. They've entered a well log and they're not currently registered.
okay. And that list used to come out 3 times a year. I'm not as familiar as I used to be, Anita, but just trying to think of, you know, ones that I want to make sure that our staff are on top of too. I mean, this should come as no surprise. You know, we deal with every license year. It's the same issue, whether it's restaurants not renewing or well drillers or septic installers or whatever. But has any notice went out since April 30th from you all?
No, it's their responsibility to know when to renew their registration, like any registration or licensure.
They get sent the renewal February 1st, right, Kathy?
Yep.
Yeah.
So that list that used to come out 3 times a year, I guess what my point is, you know, I don't want approvals for someone that's not registered. So how is that? We used to get those notices, and either we were CC'd on them when they would go to the driller, or a list would come out so that there weren't approvals being granted for these wells. You know, we certainly don't want someone, you know, a citizen that's paying for the well to be drilled that's, you know, we've issued an approval for something where the person didn't maintain their licensure, you know?
Correct. So if you go to the well construction webpage, the PDF that is on there is dated for when it was last generated.
Okay.
And it is generated 4 times a year. So that was generated after we made sure we had all the payments that came in through the end of April. And we will update that again in July when the late invoices go out.
Okay.
So we haven't really set anything to the drillers right now saying that they're expired, except for a rare few, and most of those guys haven't worked in years, and they just didn't renew. We did discuss, we have a new secretary, and you will probably, the health departments will probably start to be copied on more things than that we, like you talked about, we used to send those expired letters to the copies to the health departments. I will have that start to happen again. Melissa can do that.
And we've had them where the driller has deceased in the past year, but the company continues to send the fee and the application in. And I don't know if that's something that's more widely looked at. I mean, obviously I don't know how you would address something like that, but
so in the age of electronic media, that is more uncommon than it used to be between Facebook and obituaries, electronic, and people, often other drillers let us know that maybe the father is deceased. So I think that is less common than it used to be with the age of being able to search someone's name and see if there's an obituary. So.
Yeah, Kathy and I do that routinely. Look for obituaries.
well, some of the ones with those low well driller numbers like those, or the companies did or something, I think we might have had, I don't know if it was 1001. I don't remember, but I know that, I don't know when they started issuing those in those numbers, but I know that was something that was discussed years ago.
But yeah, if you Tony, if you come across somebody that you think is just, filling it out and signing their dead parent's name or something, let Kathy know for sure.
Okay.
I mean, unfortunately, there's a lot of businesses right now, drilling firms that have one guy registered, an old guy, and nobody else is, and they do a ton of work, and we're just like, you guys got to get somebody registered or you're going to be out of business. It's crazy that they don't plan for the future. Blows
I think
my mind.
More common than you guys think.
I know.
Especially right now when there's a lot of work. Yeah. So, anybody else have a question?
Thanks, Kathy. While I've got the mic here, if everybody could mute your microphones while you're not talking, because we're getting a lot of echo across here. So, we're on contract update. Brad Latas.
How's it going, everyone? I only have two enforcement updates. We revoked a driller's registration for consent agreement violations. They had 13 violations over the past 2 years in the consent agreement. So it was just they weren't following the consent agreement that they agreed to. So we moved to revoke their license. We also entered into a consent agreement with a driller in the Upper Peninsula who has routinely not done their well logs. So we'll see how the next 2 years go for that consent agreement.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
This one that was revoked, if I heard you correctly, he got it revoked for not complying with the consent agreement after having to sign a consent agreement for violations.
Correct.
So they basically just didn't care.
Yep.
Bravo to EGLE. Thank you. Bravo.
We got some flack on that from them, of course, but yeah, we hadn't actually done that in quite a while, revoke somebody for non-compliance with a consent agreement. And it's crazy. It's the same violations which got him into the consent agreement in the first place. He just continued. I don't get it.
Were they a large driller?
No, I mean, he's updated on our website. It's Willie Cohn up in Gaylord. I think he goes by Willie. His name's Larry Lawrence, but he goes
Gotcha.
by Willie anyway. Yeah, it was him. He didn't do a lot. I want to say like 15 wells a year or something like that.
So, no, we're going to follow the policy that if, you're entered into a consent agreement and you violate that for the same reason that you got into that consent agreement, the behavior is not corrected, and that's what we're seeking to do.
Okay, well, thank you, Eagle. That was great. We're on to other business or comments. I had a couple. Dave, were you going to talk about the sanitary training that's going to be happening?
Are you talking about the shop talk?
Yeah, the shop talk. I thought that was an awesome thing.
I guess I can talk about it. Basically, early August, in cooperation with Milan Supply and Valley Farms, we were able to kind of set up a training where the local sanitarians can head into the supply houses, and we're gonna kind of walk through the shop with them and talk about a variety of the construction materials and products used in the water well drilling industry, and kind of make it real casual, so they're comfortable and asking questions. And I think we're scheduled for an hour and a half at each. Right now there's one in Grayling, Grand Rapids, and Flint. I know Rob Wolf was working on one with Eric in the UP, so I think that's probably going to happen maybe closer to the fall, but I don't want to speak for Eric or Rob at this point. But yeah, so we're going to try and move forward with that. Right now, today I've worked a little bit on some talking points and discussion points that EGLE wants to make sure that gets covered, and we're going to share that with the supply houses and get feedback from them, and hopefully we'll be able to put together something really nice for the sanitarians as far as training goes.
And we invite our partners in Mi'kmaq to attend as well and participate. I'm sure that there's some valuable information that you can provide in working with each other, as well as meeting each other and being able to talk with each other about the different aspects that are being learned.
I'm gonna try to be there myself. So
Excellent.
I went over all the figures for the MGWA event at the last meeting, but I just want to say again, thanks to the EGLE staff, we did have 29 sanitarians attend, and we thank EGLE for all their participation and help in all this training for the sanitarians and so, and I think it proved worthy. The fruits are going to be worthy because of all the applicants that passed, number one. Number two is we have sanitarians that got a little bit more knowledge now. Kathleen, you got a question?
So a lot of the guys I interact with that are going to take the exam don't know anything about the fundamentals. I don't know who does your outreach or trying to, get a hold and get the information out for when you have the fundamentals. But I know we can give you logic data, addresses, businesses, things like the emails. But I know several of them said, oh, I would have gone. And so, yeah, I know your outreach probably struggled through COVID, but you might want to beef up your outreach if you can to non-members.
what we do is we take the current list of registered water well drilling contractors and we send it to all of them for our fundamentals and our event. Obviously, members, get theirs because we're in constant contact with it. But we send it to every non-member. Now, whether that non-member owner doesn't know that his helper is going to take the exam or something and doesn't share that with them, I don't know. But other than that, that's how we reach our list on outreach. And we throw it on the national publication, which is the Water Well Journal. It's in there too when we do it. And we're going to have our event. So I know sometimes stuff doesn't trickle down to the guys in the field from the owner, and it makes it tough. So. The other thing that I had was just a little side note. You were talking about obituaries. I want to let everybody know that some of us on this call knew past President Norm Buer. He's fine, but he's not in hospice. So I just thought, I know that Anita knew him and Kathy, and so he's struggling. So I want everybody to know that. I have one thing I want to talk about. On our last meeting, Dana brought up marijuana grow facilities. And we also talked about update on underground storage tank guidance and isolation distances. Where does anybody have any idea where we're at on those two items?
Currently on the underground storage tanks, there's Senate Bill 991 out there to allow for a like-for-like replacement of underground storage tanks because the new tanks are they're state-of-the-art compared to what is probably in the ground, and our goal is to protect public health, so that makes sense to replace old tanks that are in the ground with newer, better quality construction. So was in the House. There was a House committee meeting, I believe, last week. And so I think that that's probably on its way to go get signed. I didn't see, most people thought it was a good idea. EGLE's in support of that. As far as new tanks, we're still working with Laura on the new builds and constructions and the existing wells because we have no authority in the well code to give deviations for tanks. That's not in EGLE's wheelhouse. So we're still having some discussions on that and still needing to work with Laura on that. The grow facilities, that's kind of along the same lines as the USTs. I'm not sure if there's any specific topics or concerns that we can address to maybe narrow this down.
Well, there isn't from MGWA standpoint as far as topics. It's just there are a lot of them going in there, and they're really not in a classified window. Are they ag? Are they type 2? Are they type 3? I mean, we're talking about a product that's being ingested by people, even though there's no real rules, and water's being put on it, and there's any different isolation distances or anything like that. I mean, there's a whole, we could set for an hour and list all the issues that could possibly come up. But it's just kind of an uncharted territory.
Right. I don't know if Laura wants to add anything to this, but we were seeing them along the lines of being like storage tanks. So that we did have a request for the installation of a well in a PFAS area for a grow facility. And EGLE is not recommending that they put that well in because the supply is contaminated. The source water is.
Good.
I don't know. Laura, did you have any?
You know, we really haven't been I haven't really been receiving a whole lot of questions about grow facilities yet. I know that they're coming, especially as we get the rules down on some of the stuff. So to be continued.
Brian, you had your hand up.
So as a business, they would at least be a type 3 probably. And if depending on what the number of people and stuff they have, they may be a type 2 that's in there. So I think they're, when they go back in, they're not outside of the construction code or the Safe Drinking Water Act, because they are going to be a public serving well, unless they're only agriculture in itself. If there's any employees involved, then it seems like it should have a classification of a 3 or a 2. But I guess there are facilities that probably are just the greenhouse or just the facility itself.
Mike?
I guess my thought was I'm more concerned about the processing chemicals or sprays that are put on these plants, and where does the leachate go from there? And I guess that ties into that whole isolation distance and well type issue also. So I guess that was my concern.
I'll kind of speak to that piece. Greenhouses and whatnot utilize different chemicals across the board in the agricultural realm. So it's not a new thing for a greenhouse type facility to need to adhere to certain isolation distances and chemical storages and all of that stuff. So I'm assuming a lot of the stuff will just be very similar in how greenhouses are currently regulated, and looking where some of that wash water and where the effluent from the facility will be going, and those isolation distance standards will need to be met.
Chad Brewer, you had a question?
Well, we just finished up a marijuana grow facility last night. As a matter of fact, we drilled the well a year ago, but with supply chain issues, they haven't even been able to get transformers to run the building. But, originally we did permit this as a type 3 well, and we were told it was all engineered, all approved with EGLE, the location of the well. And now probably 100 foot from our wells, there's, buried plastic tanks that they're going to be pumping processed water into. I have no idea what they're for, but I didn't know there were specific rules about it until after the well was in. So I don't know what we're going to do with enforcement on some of this stuff that's already been in process. And, again, those were installed after the well was installed. So I don't know how they're going to handle that.
I agree, Chad. I'm seeing a lot of variable different things going on, cowboy kind of stuff happening with some of these facilities, and I'm a little concerned. And I know that EGLE's hands are tied, and the staff isn't there to go out and inspect every one of these facilities. But I would hope that if they needed any type of a guidance, that maybe there's a new category for some inspections and things like this, because I'm even seeing, they start off with Billy, Bob, and John, and I drive in there a year and a half later, and there's 60 cars in a parking lot, which, first of all, as an employer, I'm a little jealous that they can hire 60 people in a 2-year period when I can't get fixed. And the last thing is now we went from, a very small, 2-man operation to a major employer, in my opinion. So these are some things that I know that EGLE has their hands full in trying to do, but I think we need to keep it on the forefront of our thought process here, because I can see potential problems myself. I see that Elizabeth has her hands up.
So I guess I just wanted to make a quick comment. I have a lot of these going in my area of the state where I oversee the health departments, and a lot of, health departments will communicate with me and ask, classification. So we do discuss that depending on the amount of employees. But also, there will be a lot of questions regarding isolation distances. And basically, we discuss, sizing, what is in there, what it contains. And also we direct the health departments first and foremost before permitting these well at them, that they need to have the owner contact Water Resources first, and Water Resources will go through their plan to see where the discharge is, if there is a discharge. So basically that's how we're handling it if we're contacted by the health departments at this point. I'm not sure if I missed anything, but I do generally have a lot of these where the health departments will contact me for guidance. So I guess I just wanted to make that comment.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's a lot going in my area of the state too. I mean, for my business, it's been good, but also for my concern, it's been even higher for many reasons. But anyways, we won't get into that. I thought it was prudent that we talk about it. I would like to see it on our next agenda. That's where we're at, number 9. So I'd like to see some sort of even a discussion. And as I encourage all the well driller members on this committee to, put your questions in writing and get them to us so that we can maybe address some of these and EGLE can ask them. I sure will be. And another agenda item for our next meeting is we're going to meet in the fall, I believe, right? September, I think, maybe. That would be our next quarter. Maybe an update on the sanitary training, the shop talk, and how that went, and if it went well, and maybe some movement forward on that, because I think we can solve a lot of our problems by cohesively training everybody. That's my opinion. So again, but I think another agenda item we need to have is to see where we're at on our concrete issue. And then our board is having a meeting in August. So we will have our conference pretty much put together by then. So we'll have dates and times and seminars and stuff for EGLE staff to start to put together, because I know you had to put in your travel stuff soon. And it will be at the GW Marriott next year in Grand Rapids. So JW Marriott, excuse me. Anybody else have any agenda items they'd like to see in the next meeting? Okay, if anybody has any agenda items, I urge you to give them to myself, Anita, Dave, anybody on the committee. Kathleen has a question.
Actually, it was some other business and you moved on. So probably most of the drillers are not surprised. I've been getting a lot of consumer questions from well owners about pricing and fairness of pricing and pricing changes after they get a bid. I can't give a lot of advice on this because the price is rapidly rising. So some of these people have gotten bids 6 months ago, and now the contractor is telling him it's going to cost more. So I know this is going on. The one thing that surprised me was the well owner who said the driller wanted all the money up front, which was $10,000. I usually don't give advice, but I told him that is not common, and I didn't feel that that was a good business practice, and they should just be secure in a good contract and have a discussion with the contractor. These are people in Northwest Lower Peninsula that are waiting 6 to 8 months to get wells, and they really feel they're under the thumb of the contractor. And I really don't have advice for them. I can only offer them very, very limited, you know, advice, and be sure they're getting a contract, you know, read the contract closely. You know, materials are going up every day. I don't know how much materials cost. Frankly, I don't want to. I don't want to know what stuff costs, because that puts me in a bad situation to know how much something costs. You know, I get a call from Saginaw and then I'll get a call from Bel Air. I don't know that the pricing is different in those areas right now, but probably more than I've ever worked here before. I'm getting like general consumer questions about well drilling and pricing and contracts and turn times. And I know you guys all know that that's the world you're in right now. And just wanted to let you know. Like I said, I don't give a lot of advice. But yeah, my only advice is sign a contract and make sure, you know, I didn't think giving all the money up front was appropriate. And I told him I didn't think a solid contractor would ask for that.
Mike, you had a comment. I'll comment on this.
I just had a quick comment for Kathy on that. I feel sorry that you're fielding those kind of calls, but most contractors that I know of only will hold a bid for 90 days, just based on the, you know, the volatility of the materials. And we, you know, will always recommend, hey, you know, that bid is 6 months old. Let us go ahead and requote that for you before we sign on the dotted line here and get started with the work. It's always good to get that in writing. So.
Mike, I agree with you. My quotes this year are only good for 30 days and less. And before I let anybody send me a contract, they'll call, normally say, hey, we're going to go ahead and sign and send it. My secretary knows, and she's very good. She said, well, let me look at when that was done. And I'm going to have, you know, Buddy call you before you sign that, because I'm not going to, first of all, honor a contract that I can't afford to do. Number two, I'm let them know ahead of time that things have changed. Give them the option if they want to stop, change their mind or whatever. I think most contractors are that way. I will say on the deposit side of it, that even if I took all the money up front, my suppliers will not give me enough supplies here to buy ahead of time. So if I took all the money up front for every job, put the materials here, I couldn't get them anyways. So you're Kathy, it's the world we live in, unfortunately. And there are many items that have went up 5 to 6 to 7 fold of what we were paying a year ago. So tell them to be patient. If they're not comfortable with a contractor, then that there's more than one area. If there's not more than one, they're not looking hard. And that's the advice I have for EGLE on that. Somebody else have their hand up. Chad Brewer does.
Yeah, I just had a comment on it as well, Kathy. Our contracts are only good for 30 days right now, and they have been for years. We follow pretty much the same thing Buddy and Mike, you know, we're talking about, but I will make a comment on the 100% down. You know, I think most contractors are getting half down. You know, our lead times are way out right now, and we're taking less money down than I normally would, because I don't want to be sitting on huge volumes of people's money. But I will say, there are cases, Kathy, where I don't trust the customer and I won't move equipment without 100% down. So trust is a two-way street, and we work with people that I don't trust them farther than I can spit. And I hate to be like that, but I mean, there are jobs I will not move on without 100% up front before we even walk out the door. And I hate to be like that. They're few and far between, but they're out there. So there's two sides to every story. I guess that's all I have.
Thanks, Chad. You are correct. There are those instances where you maybe have heard enough bad things or rumors about a particular situation that you tread very lightly going into the job. So I'm not saying that this person that you were talking to was that way, but it could have been one of those individuals. Who knows? So that was on old business or other business. Does anybody else have anything on other business before we finish our agenda items?
I had just one item. I know I've spoken with Anita about this different times, but is there any thoughts in the future with WellLogic of posting up those old well abandonments in some sort of a format that we could look those up? I know it's been a kind of a stinker, and we always, as the well drillers, felt that once that abandonment log is filed, it goes into a black hole, never to be seen again. And some of that information is, believe it or not, kind of valuable. And I know developers and land users would find that information pretty helpful also. But I know WellLogic wasn't designed that way on the front end.
No, I mean, are you talking about just plugging records that get submitted on paper?
Well, all of them, and not just the old ones,
I mean,
but the newer ones.
If a contractor uses WellLogic, they can submit a plugging record in WellLogic and they can go in and search and all that. It's just the paper records that we get for plugged wells go into stacks back at the office, and those have not been entered since, oh gosh, probably 25 years. After I had been here a while, so or around 25 years, I guess.
Sounds like it would be.
I don't think we have any plan at this point to put those plugging records in. We also have stacks of just pump records, which haven't been entered either. So, yeah, I don't know. The problem is a lot of those plugging records are really in tough shape. We'd have to go through to make sure they have at least some minimal information to be able to enter, but that's something we can definitely talk about, Mike.
That was just a thought. It'd be some good data to have available, but if it's going to be, not cost effective to harvest that data, and get it into some sort of a format that you could look up. But
sure.
Chad, do you still have your sign up?
Pardon me?
Chad Brewer, do you
I
still have
do,
your
buddy.
hand up?
I'm sorry, but they're not.
Okay. Jim
I
Welser?
apologize.
Yeah, I got my hand up. What about dry hole records? Are they go into a mystery file also?
Sorry, I was muted. No, those are considered drilling records. They get entered into WellLogic.
Okay.
If the driller doesn't enter them directly, then Michigan Geological Survey enters them for us.
Okay.
And they're very close to being caught up. So no, those should be in there.
Okay.
In WellLogic.
All right, thanks.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to ask for agenda items for the next meeting. If anybody has any others that they have thought about, either say it now or get them to Dave or myself. Next meeting date. So. Grab my calendar.
Probably it's the 15th of September, buddy.
Yeah, that looks good to me. Yeah. Anybody else have any objections or concerns with the 15th? It is. Okay. I thank everybody for your participation. I know everybody's busy, and I know everybody has got a lot of things to do, including EGLE, especially EGLE, because they're all trying to still work from home and go in the office, I imagine. So with that said, everybody be safe, have a good summer, and we'll talk soon.
Hey, buddy, our directors conference
Thanks,
is
buddy.
that week of September. So I mean, there won't be any local health, but that doesn't mean anything. I know Matt and I won't be there because we've got our directors conference that week.
Well, wait a minute then. Let's move it. Let's do the 22nd then. That works for me. I'd rather have you guys participate, to be honest with you. I think it's
Yeah,
important.
that looks good to me. If it's good with
Everybody
everybody
else
else.
good?
Yeah, the 22nd in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Sure.
You get Dave?
Yep, yep, we should be all set.
Okay, good. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Tony.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks.
Yep.
Thank you.